Hey, welcome in everyone to Dom Time. Joining us tonight to talk drones and drones coming to Horsham and all the things that are related to that are Colonel Howard Chip Eisler. The Colonel is the commander of the 111th Fighter Wing that will be at Horsham, the operators, if you will, of the drones, and Torrey Smith, who, along with Sean Miller, was the organizer of this protest that we saw last weekend in Horsham. Colonel, welcome, and since you'll be the day-to-day, since you're there talking about this, talk a little bit for viewers about the economic development. This has been talked about in the matrix of all the factors that brought it to Willow Grove. Why Willow Grove? Why the Horsham base? Why do that?
Well, I think first off, it was picked for our location due to the combat experience we've received flying the A-10 for years. We've flown the A-10 out of Horsham for the last 20 years, so we had that experience going into it. So what it's bringing now is, as the Air Force is transitioning to new aircraft, we were competing for those, and they selected our location for recruiting capabilities. We're in a great metropolitan area for recruiting, but it does bring a lot of focus economically to the area. It makes the base viable for the foreseeable future. By establishing the Air National Guard base there, we're able to populate the base with a lot of other organizations. Other Army organizations are on the base, bringing the number up to about 2,000.
Now, that's the upside, Torrey. But one of the parts of protest, in addition to what we talked about, I've heard rumblings, and I think some of the protesters saying this is a security risk, Al-Qaeda, terrorists, and whatever. Now, are you really believing they're going to put Horsham on the map and say this is a place of interest?
I mean, I think that there is a concern in terms of saying that we're placing a legitimate military target in the war on terror directly in Philadelphia's backyard, and I think that does certainly concern some people. I think also that a lot of the concerns that have been brought up have been kind of focused more around the kind of wider political stance against drones and kind of the questions that drones raise for us in terms of how is warfare developing and what are the directions that we're going to, and kind of us as a country kind of stepping back and maybe needing to take some looks at kind of how we want to interact with the rest of the world.
See, that's the thing where I don't get it. I was trying to draw Sean out, and I'll do the same thing with you, with all due respect. What difference does it make if we have a drone hovering there and they're operating it out of Horsham versus the colonel, and both colonels have had flight experience, buzzing over a target and having to make an instantaneous decision? This, to me, seems a more effective, judicious way for everybody involved to make that kind of decision.
I think that the concern is not so much the system of delivery. To the person on the ground who is being hit by a bomb, they don't care whether it's dropped by an A-10 or MQ-1. I think the concern is that drones allow the U.S. to basically expand its area of operations. Now we have drones operating everywhere from the Philippines all the way to
what's wrong with that?
Nigeria. I think it's basically putting us into a cycle of dramatically expanding the war, and I think a lot of that has to do with the expansion of the authorization for the use of military force that you were referring to earlier, and kind of bringing kind of this notion of Al-Qaeda and associated forces, which is a very vague term for the U.S. to employ in these, and kind of saying that ultimately, once someone ends up on this list, it's very, very difficult for them to get off of it, and there's no sort of appeal process. And so what happens is that we have increasing numbers of people that fall into the spectrum of being enemies of the U.S. with very little public information available about what they're doing on
now,
that
I don't
list.
know that that's an area for the two colonels to get into, though. That's why you engage with me on that. But Colonel, I'll take you back. Talk about the pilots and the type of stress that they might feel. They're not in harm's way here, but are they dealing with stress? I mean, it seems to be the complaint was this is like a video war. They'll have go down to Starbucks at lunchtime and they give no thought to this. I'm sure any human being, you're aware of what the damage could be at the other end.
Absolutely. We're very aware of everything that we do, and we're trained in all aspects of this. In fact, with the drone itself, and just like Colonel Corelli, I myself have been overseas in the A-10, and it's really probably less personal in the A-10 than it is sitting in a drone from thousands of miles away, because you're going to follow a target for days or weeks to take every step you can do to minimize collateral damage. You're going to follow that target until you can,
well, let me ask you,
determine it's the correct target.
If we're taking so many steps, you've heard, and the numbers vary, and I've questioned Sean on my own show about where these numbers come from. Why then is there so much collateral damage? What are some of the reasons so that citizens can know why this happens?
Absolutely, and some of the numbers that Sean quoted are controversial. They come from different sources, and I don't think they're all 100% accurate. But why it is troublesome is we're fighting an enemy that doesn't wear uniforms. We're fighting an enemy that's not on the battlefield. We're fighting an enemy that will, blend into society on a daily basis.
Or intentionally surround himself with human shields.
Absolutely surround themselves with human shields.
That's what we're fighting. So what would we do rather than, look at what was done in Boston. And these guys were inspired, according to various reports, by al-Awlaki, who's no more of an American citizen than a man on the moon, in my view. He's an enemy combatant who was inspiring people around the world to kill you, kill me, kill the colonel and our kids.
I think that one of the things that I'm personally concerned with is kind of the development of terrorism and the development of anti-American sentiment, and kind of where does that come from? And I think that one of the kind of the concerns that we have as part of the kind of expansion of the drone war is that it is now becoming kind of the new symbol of American military might. Back in the Cold War, it was our nuclear arsenal, and now moving forward in the war on terror, we've actually found a weapon system, as the colonel was saying, that it has been considered to be very effective.
All right, let me challenge that. And we know that Al-Qaeda, at least the stuff that I've read in the popular press, has tried to take steps. They are fearful of this tremendously with reflectors and everything else. Isn't that a good thing? They're hovering in caves. I
mean, absolutely, but we have to look at, as General Cartwright said during the recent Senate hearings on this, there is an issue of blowback that this will eventually, that we're opening Pandora's box at this point. Recently, I don't know if you've heard of Rezwan Firdaus. He was a Pakistani man who lived in Falls Church, Virginia, and tried to remotely pilot 3 remotely piloted aircraft packed full of C4 into the Pentagon recently. And unfortunately, what's happening right now is that the U.S. is developing something very similar to this. A company called AeroVironment is developing a drone called the Switchblade, which is essentially a tiny robotic suicide bomber that can now fly and hover into various areas.
Are you arguing that these guys would not do this if we were not using drones? They mean to kill us. I offered to you back as more evidence of how evil and sadistic they are.
I mean, I think that one of the things is that I think that when we go abroad and we end up going after the bad guys and having collateral damage, you create more sympathy for the enemy. I think
let me let you in here, Colonel, and in your training and all that, what are you told about that, if anything? Or is your training just mainly to execute the mission? Are you given a psychology of why we're doing this?
Our training is generally to execute the mission, and that's what we deal with. In the psychology, I think you're going to see these attacks from any level with any technology up to a pressure cooker that they're going to execute attacks on Americans with. So I don't think we're driving their technology in any fashion whatsoever. I think we're keeping them on the defensive. I think these strikes are taking down the leadership of Al-Qaeda. And the problem is, as well, is the leadership. It's a very flat organization, and any person at any level in the Al-Qaeda organization can do great damage to this country.
Gentlemen, thank you. Thanks very much. We're almost flat out of time here. Tori, thank you very much. To be continued. Colonel, thank you very much. Good luck with the mission.
Thank you, Dom. Appreciate it.
All right, coming up here on Dom Time, I've had an unbelievable day on my radio show, fending off the forces, the dinosaur forces. We're going to talk about privatizing liquor in Pennsylvania and what's happening with that. That's next on Dom Time. Hey, I'm with you tonight after an exhausting day fending off the forces, the backward forces here in Pennsylvania that still are fighting tooth and nail to continue this silly Rube Goldberg-like system called the Liquor Control Board. The FOP testified today in Harrisburg during my show, and they told us that if we get privatization of alcohol, what's going to happen is Pennsylvania is going to be chaos. Across the suburban landscape, people are going to go nuts because we're able to get alcohol. This is the type of foolishness that must stop. You can make it stop. Let your representative know. Let freedom drink. You are an adult. You can handle adult beverages. See you tomorrow night on Dom Time.